Dear viewers, welcome to this new episode of Special Interviews, and this time with an activist and Yazda Global Organization, President Haider Elias. Welcome, Mr. Haider.
Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to shed the light on the Yazidi cause. So what happened to the Yazidi cause after 8 years of the genocide and displacement?
I think this reminds us of many events that happened in the past 8 years. I think the Yazidi cause has lost the potential for many things. At the beginning of the genocide, the Yazidi community had multiple options to reserve as an alternative or a solution for this genocide, or at least the repairment for this genocide. In 2014, the entire community was displaced to unfinished buildings in Kurdistan region. And later on, they were transferred to the refugee camps or IDP camps that built by the UN. And the Yazidi community members who tried crossing the border of Turkey, seeking refuge in a third country, succeeded throughout the time to settle in the European countries. But those who were left here, their case was politicized, unfortunately. There were many countries who were trying to help, including the Iraqi government, to help the survivors. But what happened to Sinjar, it became a political arena that has hosted only militia groups in the region. We have the proxy war of 3 countries at least are taking place right now in Sinjar. And the cause of the Yazidi people is not just one view and one vision of a certain organization that wants to support the Yazidis. To give you an example is, on the view of Yazda, there is one cause and it knows exactly what direction it goes. Mm-hmm. And we have people who are part of political parties, they think differently. Their vision for the Yazidis is different. Those people who are part of the political parties in Kurdistan think that we only have one solution. Mm-hmm. We either stay here in Kurdistan and become part of the Kurdistan and all have Kurdistan controls Sinjar, and in this case, that's the only solution to be safe. Other than that, we're not going to work with any other militia groups. Those who are with the Hashid think that it's best that the Yazidi case handled by Baghdad and by Hashid and no other interference. Mm-hmm. Those who are by other militia groups such as YPG or PKK, they think that the Yazidi case should be handled differently. Neither Iraqi government nor Iraqi Kurdistan should be straightforward. Unfortunately, it has been dismantled. It's like a dead body that's dragged by many predators, and each one is grabbing a piece and trying to play with it. Some people do it from their heart, some organizations, some do it on their private, pure interest, and it's unfortunate. So I think the cause for this community is not going to any direction in this case that we think it's positive.
So as president of a global organization, what have the international organizations done for the Yazidi cause so far?
It's very obvious when a nation itself doesn't support its people, the international organizations are only able to support certain cases. They triage, and triage, you gradually assess and prioritize the cases that are more urgent. Mm-hmm. And so you only are helping the bottom 10% of the population, or maybe less at this case. In the Hook, for example, we have nearly 196,000 Yazidis or in IDP camps. We have the outsiders are about 25,000. So this is at least 220,000 Yazidis that have been displaced inside and outside of these refugee camps. And we have 62 non-governmental organizations helping in the whole province. They only are able to help certain cases, direct survivors, for example. And the rest of the population is just not going anywhere. So the international organizations are doing their best, but they're not meant to lift up the entire community. Obviously, the burdens of that should go on the shoulders of the Iraqi government, not anything else. And the plan for the NGOs to end the process of their help gradually from Iraq, and they have to move somewhere else. It's been 8 years. The Iraqi government is still not ready, and the NGOs are not going to stay here forever.
So another question, so which country is the best country in supporting the Yazidi community and why?
It's very difficult to categorize on the help of the countries and the type of support, because each country has its unique ability and also the specialty and the point or issue that have passion about to help the Yazidis. For example, at the beginning, the German government started with receiving 1,100 Yazidi survivors. It was very quickly. The US government definitely has the more funding and the most funding out of all these countries. And the US government has spent the most money. I think it's equivalent to all the other countries together. 50% or more the US, 50% the rest of the all countries that are trying to help the Yazidis. So when it comes to funding, US is the biggest donor to the Yazidi community. And also when it comes to justice, US and also Germany is trying, not from inside, but outside of Iraq, also is a good contributor to the justice and accountability. In terms of political pressure on Iraqi government and international community, US is more kind of a better contributor, but we do have other countries that are trying to help. We have the German government are trying to help from legal perspective. We have France government are supportive. Dutch government from Netherlands are trying to help too. And so it depends. We have Luxembourg government that is trying to financially support some. They've already supported one project, and they're doing another project for this year. So financially and also politically, US is the bigger contributor, but we cannot discredit the rest of the countries. Dutch, German government, French government also contributed to building a hospital in Sinjar. We have Netherlands donated 21 million euro a year ago, and also Luxembourg and Germany and many other countries. Yes.
Okay. Have you tried to communicate with Arab countries to recognize the Yazidis genocide?
We have initiated a process that was going to propose genocide recognition starting with the neighboring Arab countries, and then spread out to all Arab countries that are willing to support this initiative. We haven't gotten any reflection back. We still are at the beginning of this process. We expect that a lot of Arab countries will first reject that, because in many of their constitutions, the term genocide is not included in the constitution itself to categorize that as a genocide. Everything it's either categorized as a terrorist or innocent. Just like the Iraqi constitution, we have Article 4 says that of terrorism. Someone killing the Yazidis is a terrorist. They don't categorize it as committing a genocide against the Yazidi community. We expect that conflict and that is obstacle to be facing us in each Arab countries that we do. But that doesn't mean we can quit. We're going to push that forward and see that in the coming future.
Okay. Are there any guarantees from the international community to the Yazidis that another genocide is not going to happen to the Yazidis?
Unfortunately, no. There was guarantees back in 1939 when Nazis, Germany's committed Holocaust against the Jewish community. There were terms saying never again at the time to prevent any future genocides. Too many genocides have happened after that. We had the genocide in Darfur and Rwandan's genocide. We have the Burmese communities. We have Bosnia. We had in China. We have the Yazidi genocide, and we have many others. Unfortunately, the international community do not have a system put in place to prevent a genocide happening by the ISIS-like groups against the Yazidi-like groups, because they do not have the mechanism that is going to prevent. The international community is in denial to face some of the radical groups that are using Islamic fundamental ideas to commit genocide against the Yazidis. If they're not going to find a diagnosis, they're not going to solve the problem. So there is denial, there is politicization of the case, meaning that more groups will be created and will be committing genocide. Unfortunately, Yazidis have to be very smart, very careful, very precautious when they resettle back in Sinjar, making sure that this time they're safer than next time.
So we'll come to the rebuilding of Sinjar. Is there any plan from the international community for reconstructing Sinjar and returning the displaced people?
Unfortunately, there is no clear plan, at least put in place, a practical plan to start the reconstruction and rebuilding the infrastructure of the city of Sinjar and surrounding villages. U.S. government more often talks about contributing to that plan, but unless it's a safe, it's what we call it Sinjar box or fund box. It's a safety box that we put. Governments donate money and they contribute to the building of Sinjar. The Iraqi government has not been in a level where it is trusted with this money. And there are many countries that are willing to contribute to that, but it has not been a concrete plan so far. The only way we have now is to drag that funding from the Iraqi budget, and the international community is also waiting for the Iraqi government to be formed and to dedicate a specific budgetary line that it's going to support Sinjar itself. But there is no other guarantees yet. People donate small amounts and they're not enough.
And how do you see the role of NGOs in Sinjar area?
I think the role of NGOs in Sinjar area, at the absence of the security and the political leadership, it's really, really important, because without these NGOs, we have over 20 NGOs that are currently actively working in Sinjar. Not all of them are as active. The NGOs, meaning the internationally based NGOs. Some of them, based on their capacity, to the best of their capacity, are helping in different levels. Each one at smaller scales, intermediate scale, and then large scales like UNDP, helping with the electricity and the power line and also the infrastructure of the city buildings. The role of the NGOs is very important for the employment, for the local economy, and also for revitalizing the local economy itself and life of people, making the life of people better at the absence of the administration at the time. It's not covering everything, There are a lot of corruption that happens when it comes to staffing or maybe helping with livelihood projects. But overall, their presence is better than not being there.
Okay, another question. Why did everyone fail to return the displaced Yazidis to their area, especially in Sinjar?
I think the area, as we explained at the beginning, the region was, in the Yazidi case, has been politicized. And I think back in 2015, a lot of families started to return, and not necessarily to their own home, but they started to return to Sinjar and start from the scratch to build a future and a sustainable income if they can. But the politics have interfered. The militia groups in the region got into a lot of fights and marginalized many governments, like the Kurdistan regional government, and that prevented the Yazidis. There has been economic sanctions also on Sinjar. That's one prevention factor. For example, food and products do not go from Kurdistan to Sinjar, or do not come also from Sinjar to Kurdistan. That's one thing. The process of going back and forth is always questions where you're coming from for security reason, I assume. Another factor is the security itself. There have been some abduction recently, and some of the people don't feel that the safety is there, that it is guaranteed. Another factor is the economic incentive. There are not a lot of jobs available in the region. Another factor is the infrastructure of the buildings. Some of the people, their houses are destroyed. They're waiting for a compensation to be put in place so they can start rebuilding their homes, and because they don't have any sustainable income to pay from that, they have to, a regular typical house infrastructure repairman cost about at least $10,000 to $20,000 US dollars. It's a lot of money that not every family can afford that. Another factor is the absence of the sustainable health care. Hospitals, reliable clinics, emergencies. If you have a mother and she's frequent visitor of a hospital or a doctor, you need to have a hospital that's within 1 hour or less away from your region. So if you need that, you have to drive all the way to Kurdistan. That's no less than 4 hours. If it's at nighttime, it's not going to happen. So many healthcare reasons, and also the education is another factor. There are not a lot of teachers that are there. A lot of teachers that are getting paid today, they are in refugee camps now, in IDP camps. They're not willing to go back to Sinjar. So we have many schools in Sinjar that are short, and they lack enough teachers. So there are many other factors. All these are factors contributing. Also, the political will is not present. Iraqi government doesn't want Yazidis to go back. Kurdistan regional government doesn't want the Yazidis to go back at this condition. It's all these contributing factors that are coming together, preventing those poor families to go back there. Even another factor is a lot of Yazidis have lost hope of the new Iraq, and they want to seek refuge in another country, as is happening in the recent wave that a lot of people are illegally going to a third country for resettlement and better life from the repeated persecution.
Okay, as it's known that the immigration has become a phenomenon, so in your viewpoint, is immigration a good solution for the Yazidis?
It depends on where we ask. When we ask, is immigration good for a community, we have to categorize the community. It depends on their age. It depends on the socio-economic status. It depends on their safety and political issues. We have at least 3 categories in a sociological level, and also age categories. It's different. We have goods, risk, and benefits. that can come from migration. Those people who do well economically, they don't think it's urgent to leave the country. Those people who have political position and prestige, and they receive respect and enough income, they don't think it's a good thing to leave. Those people who have been marginalized, disadvantaged, under the security threat, no sustainable income, all these people, which is a very large category, they all want to have a better life and also the life for their children. This is a category that the immigration is better for them. They don't see other solutions for that. Now those people think they want to live in a safe life with dignity and also enough income to put the food on the table. In the future, of course, every community have ever been through a genocide and displaced will face cultural issues. They're in the process of losing their culture, and the Yazidis, with no doubts, going back to or going to resettle in Europe are going to lose their entire culture and their religion. Gradually. Not right away, but throughout the time we've seen that with many other communities. But you know, a lot of other people will say, well, safety is first. We want to live. We want to save the humans first, and then save the culture later. So it's a question for international community and the Yazidis. Do you want to save humans or humanity? Or do you want to save the culture and religion? Is the question.
Okay. So, is there any NGO helping Yazidis immigrants in Greece?
NGOs, not precisely. There are some NGOs that are trying to, in a smaller level, that are helping certain families in Greece, refugee camps. UN is definitely dedicated to register them, and also UNHCR is keep counting of them and making sure that they take care of it, even though it's not enough. But there are a few smaller NGOs that are trying to help, and the goal is not to keep them there. The goal is to either reject them or resettle them in a third country. It's not to keep those people there.
So how Greek government deals with the Yazidi migrants?
I think that Greek government, we at Yazda advocated many years ago. We sat down with the Minister of Immigration and Displacement, something of that nature. And we discussed deeply that Yazidis are marginalized, and also when they come to the displacement camps and refugee camps in Greece, they go through a lot of discrimination and they're under the threat. There was some specific discrimination, positive discrimination for the Yazidis. Some of the families were transferred to containers, caravans, not tents. That was the only good thing that happened. Other than that, Yazidis are considered refugees. Their status is just as the status of an Afghan, Syrian, Sudanese migrants of other countries. There is no special treatments for the Yazidi community in Greece.
So I will ask you the last question. As Yazda, do you have any plan to support the Yazidi migrants in Greece?
So far, other than the advocacy, we are planning to push the European Union and also the Greek government to also have a positive discrimination again for the Yazidi community, meaning that take a better look at a community that has been through a genocide and discriminating their case from individual cases coming from Syria or Sudan or Afghanistan. We have these advocacy plan to speak to this government about it. But when it comes to the humanitarian aid, we think that the Yazidis in Greece are in better situation than the Yazidis in Kurdistan, because these people are in IDP camps We think the next step for the Yazidis in Greece are going to be resettled in the third country, so they are in better position.
Okay, Haider Elias, an activist and Yazda Global Organization President. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And thank you for shedding the lights on these important issues. Keep up informing the international community what is happening to the Yazidi community and how their case has been politicized. I really appreciate your presence in this valuable report.
Thanks a lot.